So, in this video, I'm reviewing the game between Charlotte and Yichen. Two of the players played the game in Tera Final 2025. So let's get started. E4, E6, D4, D5. The game started with French defense. And E5 advanced variation, C5, C3, Knight C6, Knight F3, Queen B6. So all the moves are book move. Black started to pose threat or pressure on the d4 pawn. White played bishop e2. Yeah, that's the one of the book moves. What I would do is a3. So white is going to push the b pawn, forcing black to start the exchange. So I mean, black can of course close it, and white can develop knight and the launch attack at the king side in the middle game. So if black doesn't close the center, so for example, if knight h6 and white could play b4, as I said, forcing the c5 pawn to either advance or exchange. So if you take the pawn, I would take it with the c pawn, and then white could divide the bishop to b2. Later, like knight d2, bishop d3, and the castle. So this is how white can resolve the pressure on d4. But in this game, white played bishop e2. This is also fine. And black played knight g e7, and later to f5 to still putting pressure on the d4 pawn. So this is very common in advanced variation. So white played knight a3, and black took the pawn, and knight f5. So now there are three pieces attacking the d4 pawn. On the other hand, white has like two pieces protecting it. So white moved knight to c3 to protect the d4 and bishop b4. So black tries to check the king. So the tricky part is if we block with the bishop, there's a problem at the d4 pawn. And also after the trade, black can take the b2. So black can win like maybe one of the pawns. And if you take the bishop, black take with the queen, still there's a check. And there are like still three pieces attacking d4. But after white losing the c2 knight, it's a bit tricky to protect both b2 and d4 pawn. So the best move for white actually is king f1. This is a bit unintuitive. So white chose not to short castle, but keep the c2 knight. And also later we can kick the bishop with a3, and then maybe b4, bishop b2. And so this is interesting. I mean, it's fine not castling, because this is a closed center, and there's no pressure yet on the king. If you want to move the king to the king side, maybe g3 and the king g2, and you can move the rook out, or you can just push the h pawn. So keep your rook at h1 and launch attack at the king side. So king f1 is fine. So in this game, white took the bishop, black took it back, and bishop to d2. This was actually a very good move. So white intentionally giving up the b2 pawn, but here white didn't make the correct move. The reason is the bishop e3 is a bit passive. So in this case, white lose the pawn without getting any composition. So the best move turned out to be rook b1, attacking the queen, giving up another pawn. So if you take a2, so white can speed up piece development and castling, make the king safe. If you castle, for example, so white can play bishop to d3 to move the bishop, aiming at this long diagonal, and also starting to set up a net to capture the queen. So if you look at the pair bishop guarding these two lines, and in the future, white can set up a plan to trap the queen. So for example, if you take the pawn, it seems the pawn is losing, but it turned out to be a blunder. So after the take, white can play bishop to c3, attacking the knight, and also once knight moved, so white can trap the queen. The queen is dead. And yeah, so bishop d3 is very good, and it's not wise that black took the pawn. So rook b1, that should be the best move. So here at knight e3, black exchanged the knight with the bishop, and queen c3 checked the king. The king moved to f2. So it is similar to the previous position that it's not a huge problem that white doesn't castle. The king is still quite safe, and also the rook can move out. So black castle, rook c1, kick the queen moved to a5, and with this rook move, white tries to control the c file. Queen c2, so I believe this move has two purposes. One is trying to dominate the c file, another is attacking the h7 pawn. So this is a very typical in French defense, very advanced variation that white launched attack at the king side. Because of the pawn structure, white has very great space at the king side. So if you have more space, it's much easier to launch attack. Bishop to d7, divide the bishop, later move one of the rook to c file, and bishop to d3. So this move turned out to be a mistake. Why is that? You can pause the video and think about it. So I believe the purpose is very clear and straightforward. White wants to attack h7 pawn, but there is a problem at the c file. So the best move for black is moving the rook to ca, aiming at the queen. If you take the pawn, black moved the king, so the queen has to protect the bishop, and also there is a threat like discover attack. For example, black can take the pawn or e5. So we have to move our queen along this diagonal. So for example, if you move to b1 and black play g6, so the bishop is trapped. If you sacrifice the bishop and move the queen to g6, that turned out to be another blunder because queen d2. That's a very good move. Since the knight is pinned, the king has to move. If the king moves to g3, black can sacrifice the knight first. We cannot simply move rook to g8 because we will lose our queen first. So we sacrifice the rook. That's a brilliant move. If you take with the pawn, there's a rook g8. The queen is trapped. If you took with the king, rook checks first, go here, and still there's a pin. If move the king back to the first rank, white can win the rook. So that's how can black trap the bishop. It's quite interestingly, in this game, black moved this rook, the other rook, to ca. This is not accurate. It's very similar, but it has a different outcome. So in this case, white can take the pawn. And if you play king to h8, we move queen to b1, we retreat the queen. As I said, there's threat of discover attack. If you play g6, white can take it, sacrifice the bishop, and queen g6. So there's no queen d2 because our rook is not pinning the knight anymore. If you took the a2 pawn, rook c2, we can block the check with the rook. And later on, white can check the king repeatedly to get a draw. So there is a subtle difference with a rook on f rook, but these two moves have totally different outcome. So rook to c8, and white should take the pawn, but he didn't do that. And here black can play h6 to get the pawn escaped. Well, black played bishop b4. I don't understand. Maybe we could just play a simple h6 move to make the king side safe. And later on we can move knight d4. So I think black should have more like patience here. So knight b4 took the pawn king f8. So here the king moved to the left side. I think it's fine because maybe we can move the king to e7. So as we said before, because of this pawn structure, the closed pawn structure, it's fine if we place the king at the center. It's pretty covered there. So now the rook ca moves. If it turns out the engine, this is a mistake. And this is a common mistake some young players would do, that trade rooks or trade pieces without any clear purpose or reason. So I understand white might want to trade both rooks, but those two moves doesn't give any benefit for white. And after these two moves, like white will lose the a2 pawn. So what white should do is keep the rook at c1, still holding some power on the c file. So the best move turned out to be king g3. But what is the purpose of king g3? Pause the video, take your time, think about it. Okay, so this is quite interesting. After the king moved to f8, so if white wants to further attack the king, there's one way to go, that is this f file, this semi-open file. So this king g3 can make this f file even more available. And also this move makes the king safer. We don't need to worry about any check on the second rank. So king g3 is the best move. And if black play, I mean, taking the pawn is a mistake because black will lose the knight. If knight to a2, I mean, white can take the pawn, take the b7, and there's a threat on this 7th rank. If black play king a3, kind of adding some pressure on the rook and also on e3, so here white can move the rook to f1. So the correct approach for white is moving pieces to the king side instead of trading rooks on the queen side. So this is the place the white rooks can be more powerful. If knight move here, I mean, knight g5 we will lose the pawn, so we need to hold our knight a bit, but we can move our bishop back a bit, so block this threat, and later we can move knight to g5 to attack the pawn. It's a bit hard for black to defend f7 because so if you move the bishop here, you will lose e6, and later on white can gradually move h4, h5, h6 to trying to open the h file. So in this game, the white exchanged the rooks and g3. So now it's a bit late because we lost the control of the c file. So black can move the queen here, attack the pawn. So for example, and also move the rook to c5 to protect the knight first. If we move the queen here, attacking this pawn, if we move rook to f1 still, so there's bishop to b5 attacking our rook, rook to f2. So this knight g5 is no longer dangerous. There's always a queen e3. This is check on the king. And if you play, so black can play a5. And it's a bit tricky because if you want to move your bishop to d3, it will be captured. So there's a threat on the e3 pawn. And rook c4, rook c1. So this is a mistake. As we said, trading the rooks on the c file doesn't do anything for white, but white lost the chance to doubling the rooks to attack f7 and also slowing down our attacking on the king side. So the battlefield which white should choose should be the king side instead of the queen side. And black took the pawn, we took the rook. This is another mistake, so maybe we should take the queen first. If you take, and we can win one of the pawn back, like rook a1. So we can take the pawn. I mean, if you move rook to a4, so we can move the bishop to attack the rook. Bishop here, so we can trap the knight. Since the game turned out to like moving to the end game, so it's very important to remove the past connected pawns. So in this game, white took the rook, black took the queen first, check. This is good. Otherwise, if we took the queen immediately, we will lose the rook. And after the pawn to c4, black has super strong 3 connected pass pawn, which is impossible to stop. So rook ca is great. But moving into endgame, I think black has like dominant position because these 2 passed pawns are super strong. a5, knight d2, a4. So yeah, it's super hard for white to stop the a2 pawn move. So black has 1 material, and I think black is winning. So let's quickly walk through the rest of the game. King e7, king d3, check the king, knight c6. So black gradually moved the king out, which is important. This is a dark square pawn. The bishop, light square bishop, cannot really help. King e4. So now there are 2 pieces attacking d4. So black want to have another passed pawn. And these 2 pieces are stuck protecting the pawn. And once the bishop traded with the knight, this pawn is no longer protected. Yes. So I think black has overwhelmingly good position. And there is a checkmate very soon. Thank you for watching.